Hello everyone, thank you for joining me for this video. So because this video has the very high potential to go off track and become a very unfocused rant, I'm going to just try and stick to one topic, even though I know there are a million things I can say. I'm just going to try and stick to just one topic in this particular video. Firstly, I will go ahead and say that yes, this video was inspired by recent events. I'm not trying to, use those events to kind of like express my political agenda or anything like that. I just think that conversations do need to happen, and I don't really agree with people when they say that just talking about it doesn't do anything. I disagree. I feel like we need to talk about these things and have a myriad of conversations, and this is just one of the things that I feel like I can speak to. And one thing that I'm really passionate about concerning this, among other things. So yes, if you don't know, I don't know if you're living under a rock or something, but recently there was a shooting in Orlando. I'm not going to be like those other YouTubers who start crying in their videos. I'm going to keep it together, and if I do cry, I'm going to edit it out because I don't want this to be just some sort of like, oh, look at how human I am because I'm crying in a video. I don't want this to be like some sort of validation of my humanity or something like that. If I cry or anything, I'm going to edit it out. I'm not doing that to, invalidate how sad these things are. I just feel like it takes away from the focus of this video if I'm just like crying or breaking up or something like that. Anyways, so also Christina Grimmie was killed. Surreal, unreal. The whole day after I heard that, it seemed like a dream that I was supposed to wake up from. It still does. Like, nothing seems real right now. I think a lot of people are feeling this way. Anyways, there was a shooting in a gay club in Orlando, Florida, and Christina Grimmie was also killed in Orlando, Florida. I'm going to go ahead and talk about why I think that happened and kind of clear up some misconceptions about what other people might be saying about these things, because I've noticed that after pretty much every single gun tragedy or shooting, a lot of people try and make the claim that better mental health care is the solution to prevent these tragedies, and that we need to like crack down on preventing mentally ill people from buying weapons. And to put it lightly, this is a huge pet peeve of mine, and I'm pretty sure this, whole notion doesn't only insult me, but it insults a lot of people who suffer from a mental illness. And please hear me out if you just stumbled upon this video or you do happen to have the idea that gun violence is caused by mental illness. Please listen to this video. I would really appreciate you hearing me out on this. So anyway, I'm basically going to be reading from my most recent blog post right now. Probably try not to be verbatim because that would be boring as hell. But I just posted a blog post about this because I was actually typing up the outline for this video and it just turned into a blog post, and I went ahead and posted it. I do have a blog. It's not very good. I have a lot of work that I need to do on it, but it's just rawsamy.com. So when murders happen, many people often jump to the incorrect assumption that the person who perpetrated these crimes was mentally ill. And I totally get this. I do. People think that who else would do this other than a completely insane person? Like, who would do such horrible things unless they were mentally insane? Even I myself sometimes will, like, when someone does something bad, I will say, oh, they're fucking insane, or God, they're crazy, or oh, they're psycho. And I'm just using those terms loosely, but other people are actually being serious when they say those things because they're ignorant to what mental illness actually is, and they're not using those terms as slang. They're using those terms literally, as in they literally think that the person was suffering from genuine clinical insanity or a genuinely diagnosed mental illness, when that usually just is not the case. And a lot of times people think that is the case for one main reason, and one main reason is because the media does tend to focus on reporting on crimes that were committed by mentally ill people for lots of reasons. Probably one is to create propaganda, to persuade people to believe their personal political agenda. Anyways, I don't want to bore you with all of that stuff. So a lot of times the media will report more often on crimes committed by genuinely mentally ill people. A, because it's interesting, it makes a good story. and B, because people like to have an explanation for why these things happen. You know, when these things happen, people are like, why did this happen? And everyone's searching for a reason, and it's really easy for people to blame it on mental illness, because that's something that they can like grasp onto and be like, oh yeah, they were insane, they had depression, they were taking antidepressants, they had schizophrenia, they had bipolar disorder, they were autistic, whatever. People like to just cling on to a reason. That's one of the problems, and another problem is that the media just reports more often on crimes perpetrated by mentally ill people, but those are the minority, vast minority of cases. So in a 2015 study that I used to do some research for this video, because although I knew all of these things were true, I wanted to actually do some research so that I could back up everything that I was saying. And this, honestly, this scientific study was very thorough. This is a peer-reviewed study that was in the Journal of Public Health. And by the way, I have a master's degree in public health if you want more credibility from me. So this study was done in 2015. Very, very recent. It's only 2016 right now. Very thorough. They studied the literature. They did their own research. They just did really good research, and this is a very amazing study. So I'm gonna link this study in the description box, but I'm gonna refer to it multiple times. And I'll also leave links to some other articles that will also back up what I'm trying to tell you in this video. What they say in the study, and I'm going to quote them here because I think this is a very good quote. It really words it very well. They say that the notion that mental illness causes gun violence stereotypes a vast and diverse population of persons diagnosed with psychiatric conditions and oversimplifies links between violence and mental illness. So that's amazing. One of the great quotes from that article. Okay, so I think this is so important for people to understand, which is why I'm making this video, because if you start blaming it on mental illness, you are missing the real reasons why this happens, the real larger issue. You're just, it causes people to be distracted by the real causes, the real larger social and cultural issues and reasons as to why these things happen. Blaming gun violence on mental illness does nothing but obscure the actual issues and increase stigma against innocent sufferers of mental illness, and increasing stigma has a very unfortunate side effect of causing people to not get help. So while people are like, oh, we need to get people with a mental illness in treatment because they might kill people, guess what? All those people who want to get mental health treatment are not going to do so because they don't want anyone to see them walking into a counseling center and have people be like, oh, look at that person, that person's violent, that person's a potential murderer, stay away from that person. Like, if you stigmatize mental illness in this way, very wrongly, as I'm going to talk about more in the statistics and how all of this is incorrect for you to be doing, it also has the effect of causing people to be less likely to seek treatment. And treatment is very important for people so that they don't commit suicide and so that they're not homeless, and many reasons that are many reasons that are more common than violence. All right, so you might be asking, what are the larger culture issues that are more to blame when it comes to gun violence? So once I start telling you these things, you're gonna, maybe some of you guys' minds will be opened up a little bit, and you'll be like, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't just be blaming gun violence on psychopaths or people with mental illness. Racial tension, racism, substance abuse, domestic violence, availability of firearms, strained interpersonal relationships, economic stress and poverty, religious extremism, and aggressive cultural norms that are among certain groups, you know, more violent neighborhoods, you know, gangs and stuff like that. I don't know, just among certain subcultures, aggression is kind of the norm and violence is kind of the norm. So, and none of those people are mentally ill, they just, isn't part of their culture to be violent. So yeah, all these other reasons, alcohol and drug use, citing something mentioned in this article, increases the risk of violent crime by as much as 7-fold even among persons with no history of mental illness. And another study finds that history of childhood abuse, and I've mentioned this a lot of times before, saying that, you know, bad home life is often more of a cause than mental illnesses. Like these guys who did this obviously had a bad home life. They're not mentally ill. They had a horrible upbringing. So yes, a history of childhood abuse, binge drinking, and male gender are all predictive risk factors for serious violence, more so, much more so than mental illness. Let me repeat that again. History of child abuse, bad home life, binge drinking, and male gender. Okay, so further studies found that gun-related homicide is more common in states with higher rates of gun ownership and where household firearm ownership was higher. So that goes against the whole notion that more guns is better. More guns will prevent these things, because in the places where there are higher rates of gun ownership, there are more homicides and shootings. Okay, gun violence also occurs much more often in social groups, so by relatives, friends, enemies, acquaintances. So the whole stigmatizing loners and stuff like that is also vastly incorrect, because shootings often happen in social relationships, not by loners, who are less likely to do these things because they were socially isolated. For example, schizophrenia. People think, oh, schizophrenics are going to murder people. Schizophrenics are actually less likely to commit gun violence because they withdraw and they socially isolate and they don't interact with anyone, so they don't have any risk of like getting into a heated argument. They withdraw from society, and that doesn't make them more violent or whatever. That makes them keep to themselves and not bother anyone. So yes, so therefore the equivocation that people often do between mental illness and criminal behavior is just flat out offensive and false. So please stop making it be a synonym that mentally ill equals violent criminal. So studies show that less than 3 to 5% of US crimes involve people with a mental illness. Less than 3 to 5%. So now do you understand why I'm making this video? Because it's just such propaganda, bullshit, stigmatization that people with a mental illness are more likely to be violent. Okay, so the National Center for Health Statistics, citing that article again, found that less than 5% of the 120,000 gun-related killings in the United States between 2001 and 2010 were done by people diagnosed with a mental illness. The vast majority of mental illnesses have no association with violent behavior, and only about 4% of violence in the United States can be attributed to people diagnosed with a mental illness. So not 100% like the media would have you believe, or like some, conclusion you would come to. Not 80%, not 40%, not 20%, not even 10% of violent crime. 4%. Only 4%. And then that tends to be the percent that the news reports on, tends to be the 4% that people write articles on because it's interesting and people can put their blame on something and explain something really easily. But 4%, okay? In fact, studies have shown that mentally ill people are more at risk of being victims than perpetrators of violent crime because of this stigma. People are like, gotta hurt that person because they might hurt someone else. No, they're not going to hurt someone else, but you, the sane person, are more violent than the mentally ill person who is suffering from a medical disorder. Suffering, and you are making it worse. So in conclusion, we have more to fear from sane people than the so-called insane, or people who are mentally ill. Yes, people who are sane in our society, because a lot of people think domestic abuse is normal, think that alcoholism is normal, think that substance abuse is normal, think that having a bad childhood is normal. These are the real issues. These are the real problems in society. Bad child rearing and poverty, substance abuse, and also masculinity. Not masculinity per se, but toxic masculinity, I think is what people are calling it. So the next time you try to attribute murders, violence, shootings, mass murders to mental illness, please think again. Please think again. Think about the real issues in our society, the real problems in our society, not what the media, whether it's like horror movies or action movies or thrillers or whatever, or, you know, gun lobbyists or politicians or whatever, are leading you to falsely buy into. Anyways, I hope this video was enlightening or helpful. Please share this video if you also agree with this message and think it's important. I know there are a lot of discussions that can be had, but this is just the one that I feel like I needed to speak on because it just frustrates me to no end how people will automatically jump to the conclusion that the person who did these crimes was mentally ill, or that their mental illness caused the crime. Because yes, maybe they were diagnosed with a mental illness, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that is the straw that broke the camel's back that made the crime happen. Usually it's something else, whether it's bullying, bad childhood, all these other things that I mentioned are usually the thing that triggers it. Most people with a mental illness don't have all these other factors, often don't have all these other factors, and they just are suffering with only the specific criteria for that illness, not violence or anything like that. That comes from other places. So please do more research on this. Read some of the articles below. I hope this video just starts a little bit of a conversation about, you know, one aspect of all of this tragedy that's going on. I'll be sure to make another video talking about another topic about this. But yes, please leave a comment below talking about this more. And if you have any other resources, feel free to share that as well. And thank you so much for watching, and I hope you will all stay safe, and I will talk to you in my next video. Okay, bye.